So, Robert, a new music award, it involves an area of music that some people would, and clearly do, question. I mean, you're in a quiet zone making the kind of music you make. So I'm interested with the award, if you are prepared to put up with some of the shortcuts and abbreviations and compromises that you have to endure in a way to get the kind of publicity on the music you make, if you see what I mean.
I think one of the reasons why I'm not successful is that I just get on and just do what I do, and I have an idea, and I work with that idea, and normally I'm working to commission, and then people respond to it how they want.
Yes.
I mean, it's interesting. For example, one of the things with the PRS New Music Award is that there's a public vote.
Mm.
I'm not interested in that at all. I don't really care what the public think. In the sense that if they like the idea, they like the idea. But from my perspective, either the idea is good or it's not.
But in that response, is that the answer to the question why you're not very successful?
I don't.
In commercial terms, anyway.
I don't know. I think it's just that it's not that that's a problem for me. I don't mean to say that that's a problem and that I'm angry about that. I sort of am just stumbling along, doing stuff, discovering stuff, and having ideas, and then try to coherently put those ideas into pieces, which at various times, luckily, there's just about enough interest where people will say, can you do this? Can you do that? So I'll do something, and that will eventually inspire someone to say, can you do something which is similar to that or whatever?
Because we do live in a world now where music, to some extent, or the way that most people, the majority of people listen or receive or understand music, is that it's part of publicity, if you like. It's part of a commercial world, and we're surrounded by music, crowded out by music in a way. But it's almost ceased to be music in a way. It's almost a soundtrack to a product, if you like. Whereas you're still pursuing the idea of music for its own, music that just exists for its own sake. And it's not about the publicity. It's not about, going out and you being a personality, you being someone that sells this music as if it's product. It's the music itself that's important to you.
I think there's something deeper than that. I think it's the idea. I mean, what I do is that I express that idea through my currency, and my currency happens to be through sound, through music. It doesn't have to be. So, for example, as far as this aroundNorth project is concerned with the PRS New Music Award, I've had quite a lot of feedback from around the world from people saying positive things and negative things straight to my computer email inbox. But the one thing they all say is that it's made me think. I've had to stop and think, is this? And then they say, if that's the work of an artist, then you've already achieved that.
Yeah.
So for me, the reason why you create something is to change people's thinking.
I mean, it's interesting that the PRS do this award, the New Music Award, which in one sense is philanthropic. It's committed to an area of music that they feel is underrated and undernourished, and it suggests therefore that the music needs to be pulled out of the shadows and the margins, so to speak. But do you feel sometimes that it's done in such a way, by making it a competition, by making there such a big award that gets given, that by the very nature of it then having to go into that world, as if somehow it can go into the mainstream, it compromises it's actually what it is. So that the idea that it might be about ideas, it might be about what music is for, what music is, actually gets lost, because in a way it has to get pushed over to appearing to be as if it belongs in the mainstream, and it is commercial music, and therefore has to lose all the bits around it that are the depth and the beauty of it, if you like.
No, I don't think that. My personal opinion is that the last two winning works of that award have been disasters. That's my personal opinion.
Disasters in what way?
In the sense that they didn't work.
As pieces.
As pieces of music, yeah. And I thought, well, is this getting a reputation?
So what would be a successful win then? Because for me, when I first thought about being a judge for it, I thought it was interesting because it seems to be, while over here there's all this music carrying on, and the music industry in the commercial sense is all collapsing, and pop music to an extent has it's had its journey. But the music in a longer sense, it goes back centuries, is still continuing on a journey.
Yeah.
And in this area, for me, is where the continuation of that particular journey, the one that's centuries old, not the one that's this what will eventually be seen as a kind of momentary distraction, the pop area. This journey is still carrying on, and I thought it was interesting that maybe that's what it would be about. The piece that wins should be the one that most successfully or imaginatively seems to continue a story that, you know, started way back, went through back, and ended up with Cage and went beyond. And so that was how I perceived it. And I just wondered if you felt that too, that the successful piece is part of that story that takes music forward away from what else is happening over here.
Certainly they don't ask for that information in the application.
No.
You know, and so that's perhaps interesting. And maybe, to be fair as well, is that the answer to that question will be in 30, 50, 130 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe, I mean, I can argue that Jem's piece is a good piece as well, you know, but it's an interesting argument. But maybe in 100 years' time, it'll be seen as a really important piece because it started something. It'll have a value.
But the New Music Award is peculiar because, to some extent, you're mostly just selling us an idea, us judges.
Yeah.
There is no music. You're I guess, promising or persuading us that at the end of it there will be a very...
And it feels very weird to me as well,
right?
Because there I am. I'm asked to, I think, 3 times, and with increasing coherency each time, to describe the idea.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that. Plus, it's not my personal policy to describe things that I know that I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So I've sort of checked everything. So I would have the idea, then I would go onto the computer and I'd sort of play around and see, is this theoretically possible? Or I'd phone an expert and say, is this theoretically possible? And I would generate a very small model here and go, okay, yes, we can do that. But I'm still writing and describing the idea in a way that seems sort of quite unnatural. And in the sense that for this time at least, I've been very, very sure of the fact that I'm not going to create the piece before the piece gets the award. And yet that's what you want to do. I'm writing about it. Well, why am I writing about it? I'll just have a go at doing it.
That's what makes me wonder whether this kind of music that is to an extent marginalised, it might give some clues as to the future of a more popular music, if you like, because we're used to music now because of pop music that's based on a certain tradition and involves rebellion and sex and all that kind of thing. But that might be a temporary moment. That was that particular period of pop culture. But there might be a kind of music and a kind of way of listening and creating sound that we're moving into, that these pieces and how you work gives a clue to. To it actually, it's almost like in the way that blues and country and new technology created a whole new form of music. This might be one of the ingredients in something that's about to appear that we're not prepared for, because we wouldn't have been prepared for the Velvet Underground in 1900. But it seems to be there's something in there that I think might be a seed that might lead to a whole different kind of way that people listen to music that's popular. It isn't difficult or avant-garde, it's actually how people experience sound.
I mean, for me, my new music, my sort of the journey that I'm interested in perhaps shaping is I'm interested in the question that in the 21st century, could music have a functional value as well as an aesthetic one? So is it possible to create pieces that tell you that not only are they listening and relaxing, but they also they are also telling you something? With the aroundNorth piece, it's a piece which will hopefully be a sort of an enjoyable piece to listen to, or a stimulating piece. It'll be an experience that you'll want to repeat. But you'll be able to learn from it as well. If you're interested in going to that other layer, then you would be able to go, why is that going? Well, there's a reason why. We can read the piece that way.
So as a judge about to go into the judgely huddle, have you got a last word for me to sell your idea?
The phrase that I've heard you say, which I was very thankful for, was that would this piece make the world a better place? and I think that Around North would.
Robert, I shall take your presentation under serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.